Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Star Wars video. In this video I want to go over a lot of the reveals and information that came out of Star Wars Celebration. Didn't get a chance to cover this closer to the time because obviously the Kenobi series had its first 3 episodes released sort of back to back. And that obviously took precedence over the news about stuff that will come out later. So let's just jump straight in here. So we've got some video game news, some publishing news, and then basically the rest of it is about animated or live action TV projects. So first up, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order sequel is called and revealed to be Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Coming out, I think, early 2023. I think 2023 is all they said, but I think it makes sense to be somewhat early. They showed a teaser trailer here, and I think we're going to get more information before the end of the year. And we might, in fact, get it relatively soon because it's sort of the E3 time of year. And even though E3 is not happening, there's still video game announcement type stuff happening. So we might get more than we maybe expect. Definitely some interesting stuff here. There's a lot of mystery in the trailer about who this character is. Everyone is speculating that the person in the Bacta tank is the person with the red lightsaber Cal was fighting earlier on in the trailer. So there's some sort of like, does he know this Inquisitor, or is it an Inquisitor? What's the situation? This game is set, I think, 5 years after the previous one, which actually means it's set in the same time period as the Kenobi series, so 10 years post Revenge of the Sith, which is quite interesting in terms of maybe they could do that connection. The Cal's lightsaber falls into enemy hands, and that enemy is an Imperial senator who makes a dangerous deal on Coruscant. So interesting, Coruscant being shown off again. But yeah, this character is not the Grand Inquisitor. It's the same species, but it is actually an Imperial senator here. So there was some confusion, I know, about that, but it's nice that they've at least kind of said what the situation is there. Otherwise, I think just it's a pretty solid teaser trailer. I loved the first game, including the story and the gameplay, and I'm excited to see where the story goes and what they do to maybe have the fighting be. How do they improve upon the fighting, which was already quite good, just to make it feel a little bit more like dynamic. Pretty excited to see what they do. So, just a teaser here, but pretty good. Next, publishing panel. Surprisingly, there's not too much to talk about here because I think a lot of the non-High Republic books are like coming out quite soon, and they didn't really announce a lot of other stuff. So Star Wars Padawan I am excited for. That's coming out quite soon. And then this one here, Star Wars Stories of Jedi and Sith. There's an exclusive convention cover, but I think it's Vader on the cover of the normal version. I'm quite excited for this because it's like a bunch of short stories focused on individual Jedi and Sith, which seems pretty interesting overall. So at some point on the channel, I'll probably be reviewing both of those books. Other than that, like, they had the Mandalorian adaptation comic. I don't think this is any new content. I think it's just an adaptation. Hyperspace Stories, Dark Horse have the license. They're going to be doing the sort of IDW, more kid-focused comics. But, there's some prequel stuff here, which seems quite good. Again, it takes a lot to get me into Star Wars comics, so I'm not really sure if I'll be checking too much of this stuff out. Tales from the Rancor Pit, similarly, not great. I'm glad that they're doing this, the Starlight Stories collection. They're collecting the Star Wars Insider pieces together and actually releasing it as a book. That is good. Again, I might check this out at some point. I doubt they're all too important, but I have a lot of the High Republic content, so I wouldn't mind just finishing off the collection with that. Yeah, Chronicles of the Jedi, an illustrated guide. This feels like it's an important piece of content just to have a kind of a reference book that just picture the character, name of the character, because there's a lot of new characters in the High Republic and it can be tricky to keep a track of. So I think that's actually going to be a pretty nice release to have. The High Republic panel itself, of course, was the one that properly went in depth on what Phase 2 is, because Phase 1 is over. So phase 2 has to be properly revealed. I think we got like some names of books revealed shortly before this, but they actually showed off some covers and went in a little bit more in depth on what's going on. So we know it's going back 150 years before the start of phase 1, which is already like 150 years before Phantom Menace. So we're, going even further back in time. And the idea is that phase 1 was more the sort of fall out of this amazing era where the Jedi are kind of at their strongest. So going back, we're going into sort of, this is it when it was fully at its height and not about to fall. But what I suppose we still don't maybe properly know is the full extent of why have they made the decision to stop the sort of present day story at phase 1 and go back and do a full phase of backstory before returning to the phase 1 stuff with phase 3. I definitely think there are a few stories to be told to connect a few dots with like Marchion Ro's family, the hyperspace prospecting with the Santecas and so on. That seems good. There are a few incidents they discussed throughout some of the books in phase 1 that make sense to go back to, but to make up a whole phase with just sort of these type of connections, I'm interested to see how they go about doing that, because I'm interested overall, because this kind of makes it feel like a new era on top of a new era. And I'm interested because of the connection overall and how they do it. So I'm just eager to see if this will be worth it overall. Worth taking off like a year and a half, 2 years, creating almost like a gap in your story that all these characters that you really, really like effectively won't be in this phase and will return a year or two later. So I'm interested to see what they do. But we have Convergence here, Quest for the Hidden City. Dark Horse have the High Republic Adventures comic now. Here's the mainline comic, just the High Republic being numbered back to issue 1. Makes sense. They basically reveal a lot of the Wave 2 stuff as well. So this is, I think, the early 2023 content. I think Wave 1 of Phase 2 is coming out in like October, November. And then it's more like January, February for this stuff, I think. So Cataclysm, Quest for Planet X, Path of Vengeance. So some pretty nice names. There's an audio original, The Battle of Jeddah. The Blade, so Porter Engel's backstory, which was one of the things that they set up, is going to be interesting. Path of the Sea. This was actually one of the cooler things from the panel. This is the first novel that will be released for Phase 2. This is the YA book by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland. And it was described as being one of the best novels they've ever made. And I watched this panel and they definitely went in on this, that, they really wanted to say that this is not just sort of marketing spin. He honestly believes this is one of the best books that they have. So intriguing that the first book is going to be a pretty hype one. Especially because I believe they are releasing the YA book like on its own at the start. I think the adult novel for the first wave doesn't come out for like until the month afterwards. Whereas I think they've done it in reverse for Phase 1, where they had the adult novel and the middle grade come out at the start, and then the YA later. But they seem to be reversing that this time out. So yeah, there's an art book as well for the High Republic, and of course there's more than just publishing. So obviously the Acolyte, which I don't think they revealed anything else about, but the Acolyte is going to be set in the High Republic, and that'll probably be our Sith-focused stuff for the High Republic. So I'm liking the High Republic overall. Again, I want to see what the connective stuff is for Phase 2, but I liked Phase 1 quite a bit, and I think there's a lot of potential. Next, Star Wars Visions had a panel. Now, the main thing to say here is just that Volume 2 of Visions is coming in spring 2023. And this was great. Like, Star Wars, a lot of different anime studios doing their own kind of short stories. Most of them worked, very few of them I think just didn't work. So I'm wondering how they'll sort of learn from potentially the reaction to the first batch going into this one. Because if they all delivered, this is like an amazing collection of stories, and then I'm interested to see if if they'll all be standalone or there'll maybe be some maybe follow-up ones that are kind of sequels to the first batches. But look, this was really, really fun. Some of the most fun Star Wars stuff we've had in a long time. So really cool for early next year. Next up, Bad Batch Season 2 panel. And we got the trailer, of course. I won't be doing an analysis because I don't think there's too much to talk about with a lot of the kind of trailers that they actually showed. Star Wars does have this habit of making their trailers almost a little too bland, and that they have very set things they want to show you and nothing more. So it almost feels like they're trying to counter people who maybe do a trailer analysis by not actually having too much in there. About the only thing I could pick out from this is that there are shots that I think do kind of clearly show Commander Cody making an appearance, which is kind of interesting. We'll see what they do with him. Other than that, it's just going to get across. They're wearing some kind of nice colors on their armor. It's becoming more and more unique as we get further away from the Clone Wars. They're still teasing the idea of like Crosshairs is out there. Might they go for the redemption arc? Other than that, the main thing that I focused on was Gungi, the Wookiee Padawan from the Clone Wars arc, The Gathering. That's going to be exciting to see that happen. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what the overall direction for Bad Batch Season 2 is going to be. I enjoyed Season 1, but I'm not sure what the main kind of tagline in a way for Season 2 is necessarily going to be. So maybe as we get closer to this, we'll see what the dynamic is. I think it's a fall 2022 for this, so this is coming out later this year. So we're going to be getting Bad Batch later this year, which is exciting. Next, this is something I think we've all been waiting for. What is the next like animated project that was maybe been teased? So this is a new series of animated shorts called Star Wars Tales of the Jedi. So basically, I believe it's 6 parts, and I think I remember them saying that it's sort of split into like 3 of the parts are about sort of like Ahsoka's journey, and then 3 of them are about sort of the Dooku, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Anakin sort of like master apprentice kind of line. So they were very much teasing the idea that we get to see like a younger Dooku with a like kind of very young Qui-Gon, which means that we actually are in sort of like pseudo High Republic territory, kind of very much transition from High Republic into prequel era, which is quite interesting. And just the idea of like Qui-Gon is back. They have Liam Neeson back as well, so that's exciting. And the big thing on the Ahsoka side of things is that they're showing us baby Ahsoka with her mother. And I guess we'll get to see Plo Koon finding her, which is going to be quite interesting. So this looks great overall. And again, I think this is also set for sort of fall or late 2022. So we've got some pretty cool animated stuff like Bad Batch, then this, and then like visions for like early-ish 2023. So animated stuff looks good. So getting into Andor, which was, I suppose, the main thing. They had like a trailer and were very just public about. The Mandalorian and Ahsoka did have trailers, but they only showed them to the panels. But they did leak online, but they got taken down quite quickly. I did see them. I don't have too much to say about them, but we'll get to them in a second. Either way, Andor was the one who had the public teaser trailer. I had not been at all excited for this show when it got announced. I was just like, why of all characters is Cassian Andor getting his own series? Why? I liked Rogue One, but I don't like it enough that I need a full series about one of the characters there. Now, obviously the details came out and they were like, okay, it's going to be more about the gritty spy side of the war between the Empire and the Rebels. We're going to get to see the more sort of personal impact of things, less on the big sort of Jedi Sith aspect of things that we saw in the movies, and more on the sort of day-to-day kind of battlefield behind the scenes stuff. Okay, great. The trailer to me seemed fine, but had nothing that really blew me away as a Star Wars fan. And a part of that was because it just seemed very like, okay, there's the Empire here, but because there's no like Vader, Emperor, and we're not even focusing too much on a lot of like the tech or even the stormtroopers. It just felt like, okay, we're not going too in depth on the stuff that I really care about. And then like the rebels, the thing with the rebels has always been that they're cool, but they're cool because it's like they are the faction that like Luke joins and like Han and like the main characters join in on. I don't know if they stand out all that much on their own. One of the things for me with, say, Star Wars Rebels was that I thought the weakest part of Rebels was the episodes where they focused on the slow and steady building up of the rebellion itself. I just think they never quite managed to make that story hit as hard as they wanted to, because they keep like adding extra bits and pieces onto it, and like almost overcomplicating it. Now this is going to be, I suppose, with the rebellion more established, and then showing the, like I said, the rebellion almost spreading through the galaxy, resistance beginning to rise up, and it seems like, okay, they're going to do some stuff. Mon Mothma's going to be on the political side of things in the Senate. Andor, I suppose, will more be the spy aspect of things. But one thing in the trailer that really stood out to me, not a single alien character. Everyone was a human. Now, on the Empire side of things, that's understandable, because that's just the way they are. But on the Rebellion side of things, like, that doesn't feel great. Now, I get it if they sort of get across the idea that Andor is a human and he is doing activities on planets that happen to be human focused. There's a way to explain why there aren't really any aliens around, but it really, really stands out that there aren't any aliens. And I think this is already confirmed for like a season 2, I think they mentioned, and that there's actually, what did they say? There's something like 12 episodes or something like that in the season, and they're planning like another 12. I might have got the numbers wrong there, but I heard an interview say something along those lines. So they're obviously going in on this, and it could be a surprise hit, but at least for me right now, it's not doing a lot for me. To me, it's missing a lot of what I look for in Star Wars, and for some people that might be a pleasant surprise that it doesn't have to have all this other stuff, but I'm worried that it might feel a little almost lifeless. So we'll see what happens when this one comes around. August 31st, so it's not too far away. And that likely means we'll get some sort of crossover with Tales of the Jedi or Bad Batch, depending on when they all air. So I'm guessing that pretty much once Andor starts to air, we might be able to go right to the end of the year with like a new Star Wars episode of something every week left in the year. Like, it feels like there's definitely time for that. So that's going to be a pretty exciting end to the year. Next, I suppose the last one here. They did have the Mandalorian panel, which was focused on the Mandalorian Season 3 and Ahsoka, the series. So, the Mandalorian is set for February 2023. So again, we have the sort of crossover of Visions will be, I suppose, shortly after the Mandalorian. So there might be some like tie-in there of like, as the Mandalorian comes to an end, this Vision starts up. So that's good. I always like that sort of having that continuity with all the big projects that they have. But I think the main thing here was just that they did debut Natasha Liu Bordizzo as the actress for Sabine. I think we had known this beforehand, but obviously this was the official kind of reveal. There was kind of leaks about this. So Sabine, Ahsoka. So this, I think this means the Ahsoka series, like we know from her appearance in The Mandalorian. She was talking about wanting to find Thrawn. They're going after Ezra. If they find Thrawn, they can find Ezra. That's what the whole Ahsoka Sabine scene from the end of Rebels was about. That's what this feels like. The Ahsoka show is going to kind of be the Rebels sequel that we've all kind of been looking for. Now, the trailer, which did leak, I believe, did also feature Hera in it as well. I watched it, but again, it was such a very brief teaser trailer. There wasn't too much, I think, to say about it all that much, other than to be like, hey, Rebels connections. Similarly, they did have a panel for The Mandalorian Season 3 that they did only show to the audience, but again, it leaked online. The main thing I took from that was just that, oh, hey, like, Bo-Katan's in this. Otherwise, it was kind of what you expect The Mandalorian to be. that it's going to focus on Mandalore, I guess Darksaber stuff, him trying to quote unquote redeem himself from taking his helmet off. But again, I don't think they're really going into much of the details right now. But the main thing is just that they really seem to have an amazing lineup of shows that is going to be able to continue. That Obi-Wan is going to go for the next 2 more weeks until the end of episode 6. And then we have a few more weeks to go. We'll get Andor. Andor will then transition into Bad Batch. Bad Batch will, I suppose, transition into Tales of the Jedi. And then early next year we get Mandalorian, Star Wars Visions, and we prepare for Ahsoka at some point in 2023 as well. I also got up this list of because there's so much Star Wars stuff, it's almost difficult to keep track of. There's this Young Jedi Adventures series as well. I hadn't heard much about that. So the Star Wars Skeleton Crew, they also announced this. I wasn't really sure what they were going for with this. And then everything else is a little bit sort of in the dark. But there is stuff like Boba Fett Season 2 might be happening. They all but confirmed, I think, Obi-Wan Season 2. So there's stuff happening. And then let's not forget that the publishing stuff is going to be happening. So High Republic, Fallen Order is going to be coming out. Star Wars, I think, is in a pretty good place at the moment. So the only thing that I suppose is kind of unfortunate is just that Star Wars as a kind of movie franchise it feels like we're kind of far away from that. And there's a lot of stuff that feels I think there's problems with this. This is the movie that was meant to be sort of furthest in production, but I think there's been problems with this one, which I think means that, the next movie for Star Wars will be Taika Waititi's one, and I don't think we know anything about it yet. So there's that. Otherwise, I think on the rest of the schedule, I think The Acolyte is probably the thing that excites me the most, just to see High Republic stuff being brought into the spotlight a bit more. But I don't really know kind of beyond that. So pretty exciting stuff overall. The only maybe disappointing thing is just that they didn't really tease what other novels they necessarily have for outside of High Republic stuff. But they have so much projects going on that they almost don't need novels outside of the High Republic, which is almost a good thing. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on Star Wars Celebration and all the news that we got. If there are things from the show that you saw announced that you want to get me my thoughts on, definitely let me know about them in the comments and I'll do my best to reply. Other than that, that has been the video. Thanks for watching and bye.